The interactions among the goals and between the targets are complex, involving the synergies on the one side and the trade-offs on the other side. For example, achieving target 2.3 on doubling agriculture productivity will generate multiple benefits, including poverty reduction, ending hunger, and enhancing economic growth. However, agriculture productivity improvement will increase water consumption and may lead to the competition with the demand for drinking water. And unsustainable food production will also cause environmental trade-offs, such as water pollution, land and soil degradation, and the damages to the terrestrial ecosystems and their services. In policymaking, a traditional siloed approach often prioritizes sectoral benefits and overlooks the interlinkages with other development goals, and therefore causing the trade-offs, particularly in the environmental sectors. And the intrinsic interlinkages of the SDGs then requires a shift from a siloed approach to an integrated approach to manage the synergies and the trade-offs. Understanding the interlinkages is important for taking an integrated approach, which helps to address the issues such as how we'll achieve one target impact on achieving others, and how strong are the impacts. Where are the synergies and trade-offs between the SDG targets, and how countries are different in terms of the SDG interlinkages, and what are the policy implications for priority setting and institutional and financial arrangement. By reviewing the voluntary national reviews, the VNR reports in Asian countries, we found some existing practices of SDG integrated planning and implementation. In some countries, SDG secretariat or committee was established as an interagency institution for integrated coordination of SDG planning and implementation, with ministries responsible for the implementation of specific SDGs. For example, Indonesia established a SDG National Coordination Team for SDG planning and implementation. In some countries, the Prime Minister and its office takes the lead. For example, Malaysia has a National SDG Council chaired by the Prime Minister for the implementation of SDGs. In some other countries, a lead ministry, usually the Ministry of Planning or Development, is in charge of SDG planning and implementation through the collaborations with other ministries. For example, in Cambodia, the Ministry of Planning leads the delivery of the SDGs. And in Vietnam, the Ministry of Planning and Investment is the lead agency for SDGs. However, due to the broad coverage of social, economic, and environmental dimensions, and the complicated interactions among 169 targets, taking an integrated approach for SDG planning and implementation is challenging. Also, there's a huge gap in the scientific knowledge about how the SDGs are interlinked, which presents urgent research needs. There are emerging attempts to understand and analyze the interlinkages between the SDGs. These studies, however, vary in terms of the scope of SDGs, whether it covering all goals or some of the goals, and also the level of analysis, whether the analysis is at the goal to goal level, or the target to goal level, or the target by target levels, and whether the analysis is qualitative or quantitative, and whether the analysis is generic or location and context specific ones. For the analysis of the interlinkages, also various methodologies were used, including expert opinions, literature review, statistical analysis, network analysis, and system modeling. One of the pioneer works conducted by Nelson and others at the Stockholm Environment Institute, published in Nature in 2016, and tried to articulate different types of SDG interactions and developed a typology with 7 scales, ranging from +3, the indivisible, to -3, canceling effects. This 7-point typology method was used by the International Science Council to map the interactions of goals 2, 3, 7, and 4 within the SDGs at the target level. The analysis is based on the existing literature and expert opinions. Another application of the typology method is conducted by White and colleagues in 2018 for selected 34 targets in Sweden to generate a cross-impact matrix. The scoring of the interactions between the 34 targets were conducted by the 4 authors of the paper using a literature review and the prior knowledge of the authors. The Integrated Sustainable Development Goals Planning Model, ISDG, is based on a system dynamics model and applied to a couple of countries at the national level. It was developed by the Millennium Institute. And the model covers all SDGs and 78 SDG indicators. The overall framework covers 3 dimensions, each of which includes 10 sectors. For example, the social dimension includes population, poverty, health sectors, and the economic dimension includes agriculture, industry, balance payments, and government. And the environmental dimension includes land, water, energy supply, emissions and waste, and biodiversity, etc. Each sectoral module includes multiple variables and their relationships. This is an example for the industrial sector, which is built based on Cope-Douglas production function. The production factors include capital and labor, and factor productivity depends on other drivers such as education level, health condition, infrastructure, access to electricity, level of governance, macroeconomic stability, as well as the trade openness. At IGES, we developed a methodology and a tool to analyze and visualize the SDG interlinkages. The methodology includes 4 steps. Step 1 is identify the causal relationships between relevant SDG targets and build a qualitative SDG interlinkage model. This was conducted through a comprehensive literature review, including a systematic review, and combined with expert opinions and stakeholder consultations for some specific studies. Step 2 is the selection of indicators for SDG targets, which have trackable data. We mainly use the UN global SDG indicators. For those global indicators which do not have established methodologies or lack of trackable data, we used other proxy indicators such as those from the World Bank's World Development Indicators. Step 3 is collecting the time series data from 1990 to 2019 for the indicators in 27 selected countries. These 27 countries include 22 from Asia and 5 from Africa. And also, we conduct a statistical analysis, the Pearson correlation analysis, to quantify the qualitative interlinkage. And step 4 is building the quantitative interlinkage model and also visualize the results in a network of SDG interlinkages. The outputs include national dashboards on synergies and trade-offs, and the free online visualization tool, which I will introduce later. And the methodology and the tool has been used also with network centrality analysis to rank targets and for supporting the integrated priority setting in a couple of countries in Asia. So for the qualitative SDG interlinkage model, here shows 3 figures. One is on the generic SDG interlinkage model on the left, and 2 specific interlinkage models for Bangladesh in the middle, and for Indonesia on the right. The generic model defines the structure of the interlinkages model for 169 targets, and the country models present quantified interlinkages tailored for each country. The colors in the country models indicate either strong or weak or positive or negative linkages based on the correlation coefficients. For the indicators, we used 231 global indicators and the data from the United Nations Statistical Division's Global SDG Indicators database. For those SDG indicators, which methodologies were not established or data is not available, we used other proxy indicators from the World Bank indicators database and the databases of other UN and international organizations. As a result, 145 indicators with trackable data corresponding to 113 SDG targets were selected, and the time series data from 1990 to 2019 were collected for 27 countries. Overall, the data availability is better for goals 2, 3, 4, and 9, but less for the environment-related goals, such as goals on 12, 13, and 14. On the right side, we can see the data availability at the national level across 27 countries. Countries such as Indonesia, Cambodia, and Malaysia have better data availability, but countries like Afghanistan and Brunei have less availability of the data. By using the time series, we conducted a Pearson correlation analysis to quantify the qualitative SDG interlinkage model for 27 countries. In many cases, the full time series is not available for the indicators, and we use the linear regression to impute the missing data. The correlation coefficients were further grouped into 4 types based on their strength and signs. Based on the signs, the coefficients are either positive or negative, and based on their absolute values. The coefficients can be defined as strong or weak. Based on the SDG interlinkages model for countries, we developed a free online tool to enable the visualization of the interlinkages between SDG targets. Users can select a country, select goals and relevant targets. The selected targets and their interlinkages with other SDGs can be visualized immediately on the screen. I will introduce the tool later. The visualization charts can be downloaded, and all the data is available online for free. The tool provides a couple of visualization options, including showing the outward linkages or the inward linkages, and showing only positive or the synergies or the negative linkages, the trade-offs. The tool provides a function for editing the strength of the links and adding new targets or linkages by the users. I will introduce this in details later. Besides the visualization function, the tool also provides national dashboards in a matrix format on the synergies and the trade-offs between 169 SDG targets for 27 countries. Since the tool was launched in 2017, it has been accessed from more than 130,000 users from 192 countries. And top countries include like Japan, the United States, Indonesia, Denmark, and India, among others. The tool has been used and received a recognition from various UN and international organizations, as well as by the national governments in several countries. For example, the tool was selected as one of 10 good practices and cases for the UN 2020 high-level political forum on SDG SDG for the exhibition. And also our tool that's used by Ghana in their voluntary national report was included as an example in the UN DESA 2020 handbook for VNRs. Our tool is also included in the UN ASCAP SDG help desk toolboxes and included in the United Nations Interagency Task Team on Science, Technology, and Innovation for the SDGs. It has also been used in Ghana VNR 2019, Indonesia VNRs 2019 and 2020, and in the development of an interlinkage chapter in the Indonesia's national SDG roadmap. We also use the tool to support governmental integrated policy making as practical applications. For example, in the Vietnam, we use the tool to support the development of the National Action Plan on Sustainable Consumption and Production.